Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom una vez más. Vamos a entrar a la palabra. We're going to be entering into the word. Just want to say Shabbat Shalom to everybody once again. Shabbat Shalom una vez a todos más. Today we're going to be getting into the book of Bereshit. Vamos a estar en el libro de Bereshit. Genesis, chapter 32. Actually, today's readings for this week's Torah portion, la porción de la Torah esta semana, es Vayishlach. Es Vayishlach, que es yo envié, and he sent, ¿verdad? Que él envió, that he has sent. Pero vamos a hablar de una parte, una porción de este día. And this day we're going to speak about a portion in this reading. And I think this portion applies, though it's about Jacob, aunque se trata de Jacob, esta porción, it actually applies to every one of us in life. Aplica a cada uno de nosotros en nuestra vida. So, let's go ahead and get into chapter 32, and we're gonna start reading will actually be verse 20. Let's see. Okay, we'll start in verse 24, but just kind of a recap. Vamos a empezar en verso 24. Nomás un poco de la semana pasada. We know that Jacob had received his father's blessing, había recibido la bendición de su padre, and he had left there with his father, from his father's house. Se fue de la casa de su padre, and he left to his uncle's house, Laban. Se fue de la casa de su padre y se fue hacia la casa de Labán, de su tío Labán, where there he found his wife, encontró a su esposa, pero a la que él quería, the wife that he wanted, but yet his uncle deceived him, su tío lo engañó, y le dio la hermana mayor primero, and he gave him the elder sister first, Leah. So Leah got married with Jacob, se casó Leah con Jacob, and then he found out that it wasn't Rachel, que no era Rachel, so then his uncle told him, well, I cannot give you my youngest daughter first, no te puedo dar mi hija menor, sino la mayor, primero. So he says, let the week go by, que pase la semana, y te doy mi otra hija también, and I'll give you my other daughter. So the week went by, the week of the marriage, la semana del matrimonio. And not only that, but then he ended up marrying also Rachel, and se casó también con Rachel, and having two wives, but then also two concubines, dos concubinas, two concubines, where he then had his 12 children, de los cual vino sus 12 hijos. Have the 12 children, where we get the tribes of Israel, donde agarramos las tribus de Israel. But here, Jacob had fled. Jacob ya había huido porque tenía miedo, porque su hermano lo había amenazado que lo iba a matar. He was fearful because his father, from his father's house, because his brother had threatened to kill him, lo había amenazado. But after 21 years of working, después de 21 años con su tío, and that he began to get blessed around probably 14 years later, 14 años después empezó mucha bendición, and when Joseph was born, cuando ya después nació Joseph, como lo miró como una señal, he saw it as a sign to return home, el regresar con su padre to his father's house. And we see that he begins to make that journey, empieza a hacer esa jornada but he is afraid, tiene miedo. He's afraid because of what his brother had said he was going to do, that he was going to kill him, que lo iba a matar. But though the story of today begins in verse 3, we're going to begin in verse 24, aunque la historia más o menos empieza en verso 3, nosotros vamos a empezar en verso 24. So he basically sent his family over the river or the stream. Él envió a su familia al otro lado y él aquí entonces, él se quedó ahí atrás. So, para que me ayude, voy a pedirle a José que él lea en español. I'm going to ask Jose to help me and read in Spanish for our Spanish listeners, para los que escuchan en español. Amén. So, verse 24, verso 24. It says, and Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until the breaking of day.
Y Jacob se quedó solo, entonces un hombre luchó con él hasta el alba.
And he saw that he did not overcome him. He touched the socket of his hip, and the socket of Jacob's hip was dislocated, and he wrestled with him.
Cuando él vio que no había vencido a Jacob, golpeó a Jacob en el encaje de la cadera, así su cadera fue deslocada mientras luchaba con él.
I want to make some emphasis here. The word here that of his socket, or his, in some translations says senu, dice que ahí donde está su cadera o los realmente also is like, you know, your sciatic nerve. Tu nervio ciático, which you know that when that nerve is bothering you, ese nervio te está molestando, not only is it in that spot, no solamente en ese lugar, sino que desde la cabeza hasta los pies, all the way from your head to your feet, you experience the pain of that sciatic nerve. Experimentas ese dolor del nervio ciático. So, miramos aquí de que él estaba luchando con un hombre. He was wrestling with a man. Before he went to the other side, he stayed there alone. We'll be getting more into the details. Vamos a entrar un poquito más entre los detalles. Pero tenemos que mirar una cosa aquí que Jacob ya estaba regresando del auxilio que él estaba. He was returning from the exile where he was at. And not only was he returning, but he had a problem that he had to face his fears. He had to face his fears. Él tenía que enfrentarse con sus temores. And why do I say that today's teaching applies to each and every one of us? Is because, ¿por qué digo que se aplica a nuestras vidas, a nosotros la palabra? Es porque todos nosotros, every one of us, have to face our fears. Tenemos que enfrentar nuestros temores. And sometimes, not sometimes, but all the time, todo el tiempo, you have to confront them. Los tienen que enfrentar solo, alone. Nobody's going to confront your fears with you. Nadie va a enfrentar tus temores contigo. You're going to have to face them alone. Tú mismo lo vas a tener que enfrentar. And everybody has fears of something. Todos tienen un temor de algo. And you're waiting for somebody to help you. Y estás esperando que alguien te ayude. What I'm telling you today is that nobody's going to help you. You need to face your fears. Tienes que enfrentar tus temores. Nadie te va a ayudar. See, and here the word says that he began to wrestle with a man, que empezó a luchar con un hombre. He began to wrestle with a man. Y con este hombre que él empezó a luchar, the same thing is, we're going to see that basically what he was wrestling with was with his fears. Estaba luchando con sus temores. But it don't manifest in different forms. Se manifiesta en diferentes formas. So, you're going to have to battle your fear. Vas a tener que entrar a la lucha de tu temor. You're going to have to confront your fear and you're going to have to battle it alone. Tú solo. Why alone? Because it's your fear that you are holding on to. Es el temor que tú estás deteniendo, el temor que tú estás agarrado. Vamos a aquí ver el verso 26. Let's look at verse 26. He continually wrestled with his man. Él luchando con este hombre to the point that when he was wrestling, I don't know how many of you have wrestled physically. Mientras él estaba luchando, no sé cuántos de ustedes han luchado físicamente, pero a ver, cuando uno está luchando, yo cuando era más joven yo luchaba. When I was younger, I was wrestling, and on one of the flips, en una de las marometas, yo caí, and two of my fingers, they got bent. Se me enchecaron. And I had more wrestling matches ahead. Tenía más luchas adelante. I couldn't say, I can't. What they did, they taped up my fingers. Me pusieron tape en los dedos. Y así luché. And I wrestled like that. So here, he's the man that he is wrestling with, con el que está luchando, le dice aquí que le tocó su muslo. He touched his thigh. And whether you say dislocated or whatever it is that nerve, ese nervio que afecta todo. It affects your strength. Te afecta tu fuerza. So what are you seeing here is that, you see, the thing is, the reason we mainly have fear, la razón por la que tenemos temor es because we don't have control. No tenemos control de la situación. And because we don't have control of a situation, y como no tenemos control de la situación, hacemos cosas chuecas. We do crooked things. It's almost like if it's a defense mechanism, como si es un mecanismo de defensa. It's like when somebody might tell us something, and alguien nos dice algo, and we might be aggressive to them, quizás somos agresivos. We do it as a defense mechanism, almost like to protect ourselves, como protegernos. So here, he had to confront his fear because he knows that his brother is at the other side. Él sabe que su hermano está en el otro lado. And he knows that he could face death. Puede él que se enfrentara a muerte. So he tried to soften the whole situation, como ser la situación más fácil, by sending some of his riches that he had, mandar riquezas por delante. Many times, in life, if you're lacking of affection or love, sin falta de amor, de afección, a veces buscamos el aprecio. We seek the appreciation or knowledge. How would I say? It's not knowledge. The acknowledgement of being loved or being looked at a certain way. So sometimes we want to buy our way. We want to, in other words, almost like to want to buy the love and the affection of others. Queremos quizás comprar el amor y el afecto de otros. So here's almost like Jacob. Jacob manda regalos, like sends them riches. Maybe my brother, once he gets all this, he's gonna, see differently. But it almost could be like if Jacob was imagining his brother without nothing, como que quizás se imaginaba que su hermano no tenía nada. that his brother had lost everything because when he took the blessing, se llevó la bendición. So here, as it says that he dislocated his leg, le deslocó como la cadera. And 26, vamos a leer 26. Then he said, let me go, for the day breaks. But he said, I am not letting you go until you have blessed me.
El hombre dijo, déjame ir porque ya rompe el día. Pero Jacob respondió, no te dejaré ir si no me bendices.
See, we see here that the man that he was wrestling with, con el hombre que él luchaba, le decía, ya suéltame, let me go. In other words, even though Jacob, in a sense, was losing, aunque estaba perdiendo, he had no choice but to fight to the death, to say. No tenía otra salida, sino que más bien, como decir, luchar hasta la muerte. In other words, if I don't deal with this now, in my life, si no trato con este temor que tengo en mi vida, con este problema que tengo en mi vida, if you don't deal with the problems you have in your life, you're never going to deal with them. Nunca vas a resolver los problemas. You're always going to be lacking. Todo el tiempo te va a faltar. No vas a llegar a donde tienes que llegar. You're not going to get where you need to get to. As we're going to keep reading and see here, because the thing is, here he is wrestling. I wrote here, we must face our fears and wrestle over who we are in Elohim. Tenemos que enfrentar nuestros temores y luchar para saber quién somos en Elohim. I mean, how many times are we're serving, but yet we're struggling? Estamos sirviendo a Yahweh, we're serving Yahweh, and yet we're struggling. Estamos luchando. We're still struggling in the same sins. Luchando los mismos pecados. Why haven't we confronted that and dealt with it? ¿Por qué no hemos confrontado con ese pecado en nuestra vida y resolverlo? Tenemos que luchar. We have to wrestle. So let's read. And he asked him, what is your name? And he said, Jacob.
El hombre preguntó, ¿cuál es tu nombre? Y él respondió, Jacob.
So here, he asked him, what is your name? Because he says, I want you to bless me. Quiero que me bendigas. Because if we understand in Scripture, a blessing goes a long ways. Una bendición va muy lejos. But a curse, does damage. Una maldición hace daño, pero va por varias generaciones, goes to various generations, but yet a blessing goes even further. And though yet he already had obtained some blessing, aunque ya él había recibido bendición, aún quería ya despojarse de su pasado. He wanted to get rid of his past. And that's why basically, it's almost like he said, what's your name? He says, they call me the supplanter. Generalmente mi nombre es suplantor. Or in other words, one that deceives, o uno que engaña, o uno que toma el lugar de otro, or one that takes someone's place. Como decir, I don't want to be second best anymore. Ya no quiero ser el segundo. It's like sometimes, I don't know if you ever feel like you're not good enough. No eres bastante. I no matter what I try, I can't get to where I need to get to. So he's struggling with his identity. Está luchando con su identidad. Y vemos aquí lo que le dice el hombre. Let's see what the man tells him. El 28. And he said, your name is no longer Jacob, but Israel. Because you have striven with Elohim and with men and have overcome.
Entonces el hombre dijo, desde ahora en adelante ya no te llamarás Jacob, sino Israel, porque has mostrado tu fuerza a ambos Elohim y a los hombres y has prevalecido.
So here you tell him, no longer, well, your new name now, no longer you're going to be a supplanter, you no vas a ser suplantador, sino que ahora va a ser uno que lucha, one that wrestles with Elohim. In other words, you're no longer going to be doing things your way, your crooked ways. No estás haciendo algo a tu manera chueca, sino que now you're going to walk with Elohim. Sino que ahora va a caminar con Elohim, so your identity is no longer a trickster, but one that walks with him. Sino que uno que camina con él ahora ya no es uno que él engaña. So, aquí, cada uno de nosotros, basically, we must be renamed. Tenemos que recibir un nuevo nombre, because our name is our identity. Nuestro nombre es nuestra identidad. When you hear somebody's name, you don't just say, oh, that's that person. What comes with the name? ¿Qué viene con ese nombre? Reputation. La reputación, reputation. The identity of who they are or what they do. You can say, oh, yeah, that guy's a hard worker. Ese es un trabajador. Oh, no, that person's lazy. Oh, this person, he's a thief. Esta persona es un ratero. We always associate a name with an identity. Un nombre con una identidad. So the identity that Jacob had was being stripped from him. Se le estaba quitando esa identidad. And he didn't want to get to the other side. Él no quería llegar al otro lado con la misma identidad. He didn't want to arrive to the other side with the same identity. So, here, he became from one who's, you have to be someone from being a manipulator to one who is surrendered to Elohim's power and blessing. So de un manipulador te cambias a ser uno que se rinde a Elohim en su poder y en su bendición. See, you cannot get his power and his blessing until you surrender. No puedes agarrar su poder y su bendición hasta que te rindes. Si Jacob no se rindió de la manera que le estaba diciendo que se rindió, le dijo, ya suéltame, just let me go. You lost already. But he said, no, it doesn't. And he said, even if it costs my life, I don't want to be the same anymore. Aunque cueste mi vida, ya no quiero ser el mismo. He was crying out for change in his life. Estaba clamando por un cambio en su vida. So what has to happen is that we must prevail the prison of our past. Tenemos que prevalecer la prisión de nuestro pasado, because we're always a prisoner of our past. Todo el tiempo somos un prisionero del pasado. Where we reside, where we live, our habits, nuestros hábitos. We have to come out of that prison. Tenemos que salir de esa cárcel. Y vamos a ver ahorita el resto aquí. Entonces, so now, verse 29, verso 29. And Jacob asked him, saying, please, let me know your name. And he said, why do you ask about my name? And he blessed him there.
Jacob le pidió, por favor, dime tu nombre, pero él respondió, ¿por qué estás preguntando mi nombre? Y lo bendijo allí.
And then, so he's asking name because the name is, it identifies, your name always identifies who you are. That's what your name does. And when we ask someone is where you're from, donde eres, it also defines your character or what you are about and everything. Desde que eres, donde eres, es para saber, oh, qué clase de persona es. People always say, oh, people from that area are horrible. O gente de esa área es bien mala. You know, there's always an association with name and place, nombre y lugar. So here in verse 30, in verso 30, Jacob called the name of that place Peniel. For I have seen Elohim's face to face, and my life is preserved.
Jacob llamó al lugar Peniel, rostro de Elohim, porque he visto a Elohim cara a cara, aún mi vida fue perdonada.
Here he called this place face of Elohim, because the Peni in the Hebrew is face, es cara. And the first time it appears in the scripture, la primera vez que se encuentra en la escritura is in the beginning chapters of Genesis, in Bereshit. In the beginning, it is found there where the earth was dark and chaos, había caos y oscuridad. It says that his face, su peni, his peni was over the waters. So, the thing is, we have to have an encounter. You have to understand that the term face, meaning you're before him. Estás delante de él. It's like he said when he says in the commandments, in the command of los mandamientos, you shall have no other Elohims before me. No tendrás otro Elohims delante de mí. Why? Because there can't be nothing between you and him. No puede haber nada entre tú y él, but him and you. Tú tienes que soltar todo. You have to let go of the past. Tienes que soltar el pasado, so that you may have an encounter with him. And he's saying here, I saw the face of Elohim. Yo le vi la cara de Elohim. And I survived. Y sobreviví. Because the word says nobody can see him and live. Nadie lo puede ver y vivir. Saying like, wow, I had an encounter. Tuve un encuentro con él. And when we have that moment in our life, then only can we say we have seen Elohim face to face. We all need to have that encounter. Todos tenemos que tener ese encuentro. Como en verso 30. Donde podemos decir, tuve un encuentro con él cara a cara. I had an encounter with him face to face. Where you no longer are the same. Ya no eres igual. Cambiado, transformado. 31, and it says, and the sun rose on him as he passed over Penuel, and he limped on his hip.
Mientras el sol salía sobre él, pasó Peniel cojeando de la cadera.
One thing you're going to find out, una cosa que te va a dar cuenta, the moment you have a face-to-face encounter with him, you're going to get marked. Va a quedar marcado cuando tengas un encuentro con él cara a cara. And what I say, Martin, look, now, after this encounter with him, este encuentro con él ya caminaba renco ya. He would walk with a limp. He couldn't, every time he walked, he would remember what? The encounter he had. Todos los días de su vida, como estaba caminando, se va a encontrar, se recuerda de ese encuentro. No se le puede olvidar. Right now I came to my mind, I was in this restaurant, estaba en un restaurante, y había un mesero. There was a waiter there. He was missing his pinky. Le faltaba su dedo pequeño. Y le pregunté, I asked him, what happened to your finger? ¿Qué te pasó al dedo? Me dijo, well, he said, I used to have a gambling problem. Dice, tenía un problema, jugaba dinero. Always gambling money. And always having problems with my family because of it. Y teniendo problemas con mi familia por esto. To the point, he says, that his mother says, you need to quit gambling. Necesitas que parar porque tiraba dinero. And he says, don't worry, Mom, I quit. Dice, ya paré de jugar, ya no voy. She goes, I don't believe you, no te creo que ya vas a dejar. So what he did, he got a knife out, agarró un cuchillo, puso su dedo en la mesa, he put his finger on the table, and he chopped it off. Y se lo cortó as a memory, como una memoria, that he has to keep this promise never to gamble again, nunca jugar otra vez. You know, what does the word say? ¿Qué dice la palabra que Yeshua dijo? If your hand causes you to sin, it's better to cut it off than to enter through the lake of fire. Si tu mano te causa pecar, es mejor que te la cortes que entrar al lago de fuego. If your tongue causes you to sin, si tu lengua todo el tiempo, it's better to cortártela. And you say, why you... You can't, ya no puedes. It's because it's almost like we need to have that type of an encounter, como que tenemos que tener ese tipo de encuentro para cambiar, to change, and not be the same old person, no ser la misma persona. You know, we gotta say we're tired of the old life, estamos cansados de la vida vieja, and I have to continue, start a new one, tengo que empezar una nueva. I can't move forward if I keep holding on to the past. No puedo seguir adelante si me quedo deteniendo el pasado. Our past hurts. Nuestros dolores del pasado no nos dejan progresar, doesn't let us progress. We're always holding on to the past. Estamos todo el tiempo deteniéndonos al pasado. But we see here after that night of a battle, esta noche de lucha, dice que el sol empezó a salir. The sun became to rise. But he still had that scar. Aún tenía toda esa herida. It's a new day was coming. Un nuevo día, though the day begins in the night as it sets. But he had to fight through that day. Tuvo que luchar por ese día. Amen? Now 32, it says, that is why the children of Israel to this day do not eat sinew of the hip, which is on the socket of the thigh, because he touched the socket of the thigh of Jacob in the sinew of the hip.
Por esta razón, hasta el día de hoy, los hijos de Israel no comen el músculo del muslo que pasa por el encaje de la cadera, porque el hombre golpeó a Jacob en el encaje de la cadera.
So here, good, no, you know, it's good. No more eats. Nobody. They don't. That's why they don't eat that part of the hip, esa parte del muslo. In other words, there's always a reminder. Todo el tiempo hay algo que nos recuerda de algo. What are the only things that are in the heavens that man created? Sabemos que Yahweh creó todo. Yahweh has created everything on the heavens and the earth, en los cielos y la tierra. But there's only one thing that man created, luego que el hombre crió, que es lo único que está en los Shamaim, that's in the heavens. What is it? ¿Qué es?
The covenant and the law.
The what?
The covenant and
El pacto, no. Not the covenant law.
the law. Yet.
Huh? No. Something that man did, algo que el hombre hizo.
La marca,
Stone tablets.
la marca en sus manos. Sus pies.
The scars in his hand and his feet. Las marcas que le pusieron en sus manos, sus pies. It is a memory of what?
What man did.
Un recuerdo que el hombre hizo of him, and then him dying for our sins, él muriendo por nuestros pecados. Nosotros tenemos que reflexionar en nuestra vida. We have to reflect on our life. And it is time that we do something about it. Es tiempo que hagamos algo. that we are not the same person over and over again, que no somos la misma persona otra vez y otra vez lo mismo. It's time that we break and shake that off. Es tiempo que quebremos eso y ya no estamos viviendo en las cosas del pasado. We can't continue to live in the past. Because the payment for the past is the lake of fire. El pago del pasado va a ser el lago de fuego. Because if we're holding on to things, it's in a sense, it's unforgiveness. Si nos detenemos de algo del pasado, es casi como no perdonar. And if we don't forgive, si no perdonamos, we cannot be forgiven. No podemos ser perdonados. So, and we see here that when Jacob made it to the other side, cuando llegó al otro lado, his brother actually embraced him. Su hermano lo abraza and weeps and hung on his shoulders, se le agarra de su cuello, and he wept with him. Because after 21 years, sometimes we think that somebody, how long ago, maybe Esau, maybe 7 years later or 2 years later, maybe he forgot. Or didn't even care about what his brother did to him. Quizás ya no le importó lo que su hermano le hizo. And Jacob still had that over his neck, over su cuello ahí pensando. But we know as we read the Torah, leyendo la Torah, que como a unos 20 años, no, seríamos, si eran 7, maybe 15, 16 years after, Joseph, once Joseph was born, cuando Joseph nació, is when he knew something shifted. Algo cambió. So, we ourselves, we have to let go, because sometimes, we hold on to things we shouldn't be holding on to. And all we're doing is hurting ourselves. Nos estamos dañando nosotros mismos. No estamos creciendo. We're not growing. What happens to water that just sits there? ¿Qué va con el agua que se queda ahí estancada?
Is algae.
Algae. But one main thing that you can know about water just sitting there,
Evaporates.
stinks. Apesta. Same thing, we're holding on to the past, and it stinks. Apesta. Holding on to that. It's like wearing the same clothes every day. Es como si estar usando la misma ropa todos los días. Imagine you sweat in your clothes, suda tu ropa, and you wear that same clothes every day, all day, and never changing, nunca se cambia, no se baña. Could you imagine how you're going to be? ¿Cómo va a estar?
Or it tells now.
Va a estar feo. It's something disgusting. So we have to desire a change. Tenemos que desear un cambio en nuestra vida. Not only desire it, no solamente desearlo, sino que hacer algo. But do something about it. It's, I'm going to change. Voy a cambiar. And then we're the same. We ourselves have to do the change. We can't say, oh, they this, they that, ellos esto, el otro este. They did it to me. Ellos me lo hicieron. No. You're doing it yourself because you're holding on to it. Tú mismo lo estás haciendo porque tú te estás deteniendo de eso. No lo sueltas. It's like you could hate somebody. Quizás odias a alguien. They don't even know you hate them. Ni saben que lo odias. And you're there bitter inside. That bitterness is in you. Esa amargura está en ti. And they're living their life. Ellos están viviendo su vida bien contentos, joyful. And you're the one rotting inside. Y tú te estás pudriendo adentro. It's like a wound. Es como una llaga that's rotting inside, and you just close it, and it's in there festering. Pretty soon that thing gets infected, se infecta, and it stinks. Y apesta. And that's why our life stinks. Sometimes. Pero nuestra vida pesta a veces. Say, man, you say, I hate this life. Odio esta vida. Well, that's the life you're choosing to have. Es la vida que estás escogiendo. Because that's the attitude you're choosing to have. You know, somebody knocks you down, you get up. Alguien te tumba, te tienes que levantar. A lot of people are not going to be around saying, oh, let me give you a hand. Muchos no van a decir, déjate levanto. You have to get up.
Rise and shine.
So, I hope today's word, encourages you, te anima de que hagas un esfuerzo para un cambio. That you make an effort for a change in your life. So that things can be different. Para que las cosas sean diferentes. You see, because you have to start your new journey. Tienes que empezar tu nueva jornada. To walk in His power and His blessing. Para caminar en su poder y en su bendición. But you're not going to be able to unless you let go of the past. Si no dejas el pasado, no vas a poder avanzar. So let's go ahead and pray. Father, we give you thanks. Te damos gracias, Padre, en este día, Padre. And I just ask, Father, that everybody that is listening to this word, que todo lo que está escuchando esta palabra, are able to make a decision, que puedan hacer una decisión to change for the better. El cambiar para lo mejor. Because the change will come the moment that we decide to let go of our past. El momento que decidimos dejar el pasado, then and only then can we walk in your blessing and your power. Entonces solamente podemos caminar en tu bendición y tu poder, Padre. Yo te pido de que hagamos cada uno de nosotros esa decisión. Let each and every one of us make that decision in our life so that we may prosper in you. Para que podamos prosperar en ti, Padre. Te lo pido en el nombre de tu Hijo amado. I ask you in your Son's name, Yeshua HaMashiach. Amén y amén. Shabbat Shalom, everybody.